I've told you before, I'm a fan. This is our second meeting. You are nice, all right? You are nice with yours, all right?
I just want to shout out to Swift at Swift Sports Network.
What's up, Swift? It's Kyler Gordon. Just want to do a quick shout out to Swift Sports Network with all the latest news on the Bears.
If you ain't speaking facts, we don't want to hear it. Yeah, we going for the dub. You are now watching Swift Sports.
The Bears.
What's up, guys? Joined again, as always, by my good friend Greg Gabriel. Greg, how you feeling today?
I'm doing good. How about you?
Man, doing good. Just 2 weeks away from the draft. Actually, less than 2 weeks away from the draft. As 2 weeks from today, we'll be breaking down who we picked on day one and heading into day two.
Who we're going to take on day two.
Yeah, it's going to be.
Who are we guessing that they're going to take?
And honestly, that's what I'm most excited about at this draft. The closer we get, the more likely it seems there's going to be some really, really good players there on the board when we get to round two.
That's the strength of this draft. I for the life of me, I can't see them staying at 10.
You see them moving down?
Yeah, I think they're going to move down. Now, since I was on with you 2 weeks ago, just in talking to some people around the league and some agents, and I tweeted it out. There's like 6 players that around the league are the consensus blue players. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you got Hunter, Genty, and Warren on offense, Carter, Graham, and Jaylen Walker on defense.
Jaylen Walker, there we go. Okay.
So, and after that, I like to say it's 52 pickup. So people go, well, why would somebody trade up? Well, you trade up because you want, excuse me, these are the after effects I have from COVID. You trade up because you want a specific player. You're trying to get a guy and you think somebody in between where the team you're trying to trade up with and where your pick is going to take that guy. So to make sure you do it, you can get the guy you want, you trade up. My personal experience with drafts like this is, I heard the Bucs GM say yesterday, I don't think there'll be many trades. Usually in drafts like that, there's more trades. But we'll see. I mean, every draft is different. I think there'll be a bunch, not necessarily in the top. I don't think there'll be any in the top 5 or 6.
Yeah, I don't either.
Once you get after that, yeah, I think there could be, because again, people are going to be trying to get specific guys. And if one of those 6 players starts to drop a little bit, then and one guy to me who was a wild card is Jaylen Walker, because he hasn't even worked out yet. He's not going to work out until the 18th. So that's still 8 days away. So next Friday or Saturday he's working out, I think.
That's
so
crazy. Yeah.
And Michael Williams is working out with him. So Michael wants to improve on that 40 time. The Michigan corner, I think, is working out Monday.
Will Johnson.
Next. And to me, you got to have a red flag on him. He was injured a good part of 24. He hadn't been able to do anything because of chronic hamstring issues going into the spring, excuse me, and during the spring. So it's like, how can you trust he's going to be healthy? Especially hamstring issues. Those bother me.
Yeah, that's I've seen him as a top 10 pick, but he continues falling down boards. The more and more I watch, it looks like he's falling down draft boards. So I don't know. Will Johnson's one of those players that's kind of hard to place for me. Luckily, as a Bears fan, I tend to scout the positions of weakness for the Bears, and I don't think cornerback is even on our list of needs right now. So I haven't studied cornerbacks super hard, but I've known a Will Johnson for 3, 4, 5 years now. He's been one of the highly recruited prospect, and if you go back a year, he's been projected to be a top 10 pick for more than a year now. So it's that hamstring injury. If he tests well, I'm actually hoping he does, because he's one of the guys who, if he goes ahead of us, the chances of one of those blue chippers falling goes up just a little bit.
True, but again, you got to trust that, especially with hamstring issues. And the hamstring wasn't the issue during the season; it was something else. It was a shoulder or something.
100%.
And then like Loveland, had a reconstruction of, I think it was Loveland, who had a reconstruction of his AC joint. Well, when's he going to be ready? Because he hasn't done anything,
Yeah,
and that's a darn good player.
I'm worried about Loveland. I've seen a lot of people say they like him more than Tyler Warren, and to me, when you're looking at a tight end in the first round, I'll touch on this really quick because a lot of people will talk about the bust rate. Some of these tight ends that have went in the first round that have been bust, guys like Kyle Pitts, guys like not even Kellen Winslow Jr., but most tight ends that go in the first round are receiving tight ends. Tyler Warren's a two-way tight end. These guys usually go on day two. They're usually, if you look at the tight ends similar to Tyler Warren in the NFL, they don't normally go in the top 10. The reason why he's being pushed up is because he's just a special prospect. And I don't like I would not want to get Colston Loveland in round one, but I really like Tyler Warren. He's a favorite.
Oh, I do too. Well, his agent's a good friend of mine. So, and having friendships with agents, you can find out where the BS is, especially on players like him. One, there's a lot of talk that Bears were doing a private workout with him. Wrong. A lot of talk that he was making a visit. Wrong. He's not making, he's not making any visits. And he's doing no workouts for him. He's doing nothing. The only thing he's doing is like 2 walkthrough type workouts that nothing strenuous. It's like his camp is, hey, you got the tape. That's the player. If you don't like it, don't take me. And and when I was talking to the agent, that's what the agent said. He says, really, one team gave me a hard time. And I said, well, don't take him. That's fine. But the 2 teams that are having that, semi-workout walkthrough workout, whatever, are both above the Bears.
Oh, okay. Well,
and I know who they are, but not for me to say.
Gotcha. Okay. Tito, thank you for the super chat. He had a question here about Mike Green. He said, if everything checks out okay with Mike Green, he believes that dude is a savage, and he did play great against big schools. Would you be okay with trading down a few slots and taking Mike Green, the pass rusher out of Marshall?
I don't know enough about exactly what happened. I do know that situations like that with this club is a no-no and would mean they wouldn't take him. Same thing with this receiver yesterday from Texas, Isaiah Bonds, another thing. Now, that kid's got 2 weeks to get that thing straightened out.
Yeah. I just talked about that this morning. If that's not cleared before the draft, he probably doesn't get drafted.
Well, he might go in like the 7th round, so you got his rights or something, but it's too sticky of a situation. Now, again, he's I like the part that he turned himself in, and that in a way is showing that, hey, I didn't do anything. And there's ways these attorneys can kind of force the issue, and they got 2 weeks to get that forced, and hopefully for his sake they do. But if it doesn't, that's another guy that, because of what the situation is, where he could have been, we don't know what the Bears board looked, but he could have been high on that board, not any longer. And I think that's the same with Green. Again, I'm guessing they're going to do their research. And here's the thing with Green. No arrests, no convictions. It's 2 allegations, but it's 2 allegations of the same thing at 2 separate places. And that's what the worrisome part is.
Yeah, that's where it gets worrisome. It's the fact that there's more than one. They happen to different places. There's time in between them. It's just a really crazy coincidence if something like that happened. We're currently talking about Mike Green. He's the pass rusher out of Marshall. He's a guy who, if you go back to before the combine, if you go back to the Senior Bowl, Mike Green was really rising on my draft board. I was watching his tape. He dominated at the Senior Bowl, and I had him in my top 15 players. But when it comes to the Bears specifically and how much emphasis Ryan Poles and this front office puts on character, taking a guy like that in the top 10 right now, to me, is just a huge question mark. And I think it's something that they would lean away from doing.
Here's the thing, just to change the subject a little bit. Bigsy has, and I didn't even look at it. I just know who he gave the Bears. He had another mock today. I don't know if you saw it, but I think he gave him, from what I understand, he gave him Kelvin Banks.
Yeah.
He said that might be number one. Kelvin Banks is not worth a top 10 pick. Most people think he's going to go 2025, not top 10. But Biggs has been on this thing. The first one, he gave him an offensive lineman, that they're going to take an offensive lineman. They could. I just don't think they will. I think that they will take an offensive lineman more likely in the second round. And if you look at some of the reported visits, and not all of those are actually true, that they're made visits here, that's according to some of the agents, that they put $42 million, $45 million into the offensive line in free agency, and they have been on record as backing up Braxton and Amagaji. And you can't, people say, well, they lie, it's a smokescreen. You can't lie about your own player.
Yeah.
You can lie about guys on the draft. You can lie about guys on other teams. You can lie about situations. You cannot lie about your own player. It comes back to bite in the ass. And it's like, wait a minute, you said this. And so for that reason, I just can't see it happening with the first round. I do believe they're going to take one high. And I don't believe that. I'm not sure Banks' is best place is left tackle. It might be inside at guard. I think this left tackle class really sucks.
It's an odd class. There are guys who I think, could they maybe have some success at left tackle? Yes, but when you compare it to an average year's left tackle class, it's just not there. A lot of these guys project better inside to guard. And there's been too much made about the arm length stuff. Like we've already talked about that in length. I already saw people in chat asking about it. We talked about that last time. But with Kelvin Banks, there's these guys who they just project better inside at guard than they do at tackle in the NFL. And Banks is probably one of the hardest guys to place for me. I really liked him heading into the year. I think he's a good player. I do think he's a first-round pick, but I'm with you on that. I do not think he's worth a top 10 pick. Probably not even top 15. I have him going somewhere between 15 and 25.
See, now after he got hurt, my big problem is that he wasn't playing up to standards early in the year, and then after he got hurt, he wasn't good at all. In the playoff game, SEC championship game, he was a guy. And so, yeah, could the knee have still been bothering him? Yes. So you got to give him the benefit of the doubt. But the tape is the tape. And so I'm just going off of that. The doctors will tell you about the knee. We're not going to have that information. It wasn't bad enough to have the surgery, but he missed a few games. And then he comes back and he's got extra brace on it and wrapped up real good. But he just didn't look like a quality left tackle in those games. He looked more like a day 2 guy than a day 1 guy.
Yeah, and when you're talking about Jaylen Walker, the guy we were touching on earlier, Jaylen Walker, the closer and closer we get to the draft, he's emerged. He's a true blue chipper for me. Just like you, I'm including him in those top 5 with those other 5 players to make 6 blue chippers.
The guy's a player. But the thing is, especially with the Bears, where does he play? And he's he's almost a hybrid guy. You can play him off the ball.
You move him around.
Put him down at the edge. I know who I compared him to, if you want to put him on the edge and then play him off the ball, Hassan Riddick.
Yeah,
that's the closest thing I could come to.
Yeah, I mean, I think he just has that, because I studied the defensive line class this year probably more than anything, because it's one of the deepest D-line classes I've seen in my whole life, and there's so much talent on this D-line. But one of the guys I thought would really be in play if I go back a month or so, a guy who I thought the closer we got to the draft, he would be one of those guys at pick 10, was Mykel Williams. But every time I turned on that tape and tried to watch Mykel Williams, the guy that would stand out to me is Jaylen Walker. He's just always around the ball, and he can do everything. And he said it himself. I know you've probably seen it, but Dane Brugler released his draft guide this week, The Beast. It's the biggest draft guide and that's out there. I get it every year, read it. But he
James
said
kept coming on my show, GTF, on Monday.
Oh yeah, and he said it about Jaylen Walker. He said, "What does he do best? He gets after the quarterback." And there's actually a quote in there from Jaylen Walker where he says it himself. He said, "Use me like a chess piece. You don't have to put me at one position. Move me around. Let me impact the offense." And the thing that I think he does best is limit what mobile quarterbacks in the NFL can do. The way he can spy quarterbacks and the way
I agree.
he navigates like through the trash and can locate the ball, it's just special.
We would have, when I was with the Bears, we had a grade. Generally we graded players on an A level, a B level, or a C level. Those are draftable players. A level players were guys you take in the first 2 rounds. B, third and fourth. C, rest of the draft. D were free agents. You wouldn't draft a D under any conditions. Then we had another category. It was an S, and the S meant special. And there's only a couple of those. We might have one a year. The first one we had it with, because he deserved it, was Devin. So, and if you had an S on, we just gave him like an S60. So the 6.0 wasn't anywhere near the highest grade, but the S60 meant special, and you just placed him anywhere you wanted on the board. And to me, a guy who fits that perfectly is Jaylen Walker. He's a special player. What is he exactly? I don't know. But he's a football player.
But he's going
to make a difference.
And I think he's a guy who 3 to 5 years from now, we could be talking about as the best player from this entire draft class. And I think he has that kind of capability of being a leader of a defense. He's going to get after quarterbacks. He's going to help stop those mobile quarterbacks. And he's so good against the run, too. Now, he's not big. He's not going to come in and set the edge and hold that pocket as a defensive end. But when he gets blocked, he's so good at getting under the blocks, disengaging from these guys, using his hands and getting underneath the blocks and getting through them, that he still makes plays in the run game. So I just love him as a player.
He doesn't have real long arms, but, and this is a huge but, he's 6'1.25".
But here's the thing.
And arm length but arm length is in comparison or in reflection to a guy's height. And he's got 32-inch arms or 32.25-inch arms on a 6'1" body, which gives him actually long arms for that height. If he's 6'3", 6'3.5", 6'4", then it's a different story.
He has a 5-inch longer wingspan than Will Campbell. People talk about Will Campbell.
I know, and Will Campbell's 6'6".
He's 6'6". This guy's 6'1", and he has 6 to 7 inch longer wingspan than Will Campbell. Just saying.
That's why I would never take Will Campbell I'd take him as a guard. I'd never take him as a tackle.
100%. Marion from Chicago had a super chat. Thank you. She says, how do breaking tackles and yards after contact translate to the NFL? Mostly probably talking about running backs here.
I look at it like with a running back, say with a Genty. Number one, balance plays into it. So it's contact, balance. And then what? Does he go down easy? Does he break tackles? Does he get yards? How many yards does he get? Because you start adding those yards up. And now they've got, analytic figures. How many yards after first contact? How many yards after second contact? And there's guys that are just, their balance and their lower body strength is so good that they're able to withstand the hit, stay on their feet, and keep going. In fact, I got to tell you, I did a guy this morning for next year.
Oh, for next year.
One of the agents. And I'm looking at him and I go, this is freaking Genty Jr. It's the same player. His name's Hankerson, Anthony Hankerson.
Oh, Anthony Hankerson. Yep. I know who he is. Yep.
Yeah. He was at Colorado for 2 years, went out to Oregon State last year, ran for like 1,100 yards, caught 27 passes. He's the same size. He's 5'8", 205 pounds, maybe a step slower. But it's like when you look at the running style and everything, it's the same guy.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. And I think what you mentioned there, contact balance is probably the biggest thing that translates in it. If you're not going down on arm tackles, you're getting through arm tackles, you're staying up, you're not getting tripped up. Those are the things that translate in the NFL. Sometimes also in college, guys are asked to be used in certain roles. And one of the biggest examples of this is if you look at Quinshawn Judkins, right? He was at Ole Miss in 2023, and he was a do-it-all running back. He was elusive. He was catching passes out of the backfield. He was breaking tackles. He was juking guys. And he came to Ohio State, and they had Travion Henderson. And they
Right.
basically said, Quinshawn, we want you to be the hammer. And all of a sudden, he was a completely different running back. He wasn't elusive. He wasn't juking guys anymore. He was running them over. And that's part of it too, is you have to get the whole tape of what a guy is. Sometimes guys are asked to do specific things in college, and you have to project them as what are you going to ask them to do in the NFL.
Did you see the tape? Because you mentioned Henderson that Albert Breer put out.
Oh yeah, I'd already
earlier in
seen
the week.
him as a pass blocker. I had already had a couple cut ups of those. Yeah, he's
That
the best
is
pass
the
blocker.
best job I have ever seen, and I'm saying ever, of a college back pass blocking.
Yeah, he's insane.
Because you know, there's a lot of guys, you know, they don't have the technique. You know, the first thing you want to see, will they stand in there? Can they bend their knees face up and just jolt the guy? And he does it time and time again. And really, for a 205-pound guy, really impressive.
Oh, wow.
And you want to get on the field when you're a rookie, you got to know how to pass block. And he knows how to pass block.
Yeah, it's 100%. I could definitely see. Now, I will touch quickly on this rumor. Apparently, some idiot from Denver is going around saying the Bears are going to take Travion Henderson with pick 10. I would say there's no chance of that, but I do
No,
think.
I thought it was Hampton that he was saying.
No, he was saying Henderson. He was saying Travion Henderson, and I was like, "This is the dumbest I've ever seen." Now, look,
You're talking about Mr. Albright?
Mr. Not So Bright. Yeah.
Yeah. Freaking full of shit liar.
But I didn't even want to say his name, but basically, look, I do think Travion Henderson is a guy that Ben Johnson will like, right? He's a weapon, he's a pass catcher, and like you said, he's probably the best pass blocking running back in this class. So if he's there in pick 39, I could see us go in that direction. But pick 10, shut up. That's just dumb. I was
That guy is, you know, when I was doing some work on the score, I had him on a couple times, and he was just so full of shit.
Oh man, I have some stories, but I don't want to go there. My man Naj has a question about CJ West, the Indiana defensive tackle.
Love
He says,
him.
do you think he's worth a day 2 pick? I think round 3 would be perfect.
Yeah, I think, you know, when I first did him, and this goes back probably beginning of November or something, I'm thinking, oh, wow, this guy'd be great in the 5th round. You know, because you look at him, he's 6'1" and change. But the more I liked him, first of all, he goes out to the East West and was the best defensive lineman in the practice sessions at the East West. So that really helped him. Then he has a real good combine. But, you know, you want to use a comp, you know who he is? Billings.
Yeah.
He's a young Billings. He is a bulldog.
Maybe even a little more athletic, or at least at this point in his career.
Yeah, well, now Billings, I'll tell you, you go back and watch Billings tape in college, holy shit, was he good.
Oh, yeah. I did want to address this, though, because a lot of people, every time we talk about drafting a running back this year, too many people are bringing up this point that they don't want to draft a running back with a similar skill set to DeAndre Swift.
I don't believe that.
Yeah, I think you have to take the best player on the board and the one that Ben Johnson wants, because when you're looking at this long term, Swift might not be here next year. So you're not changing your draft plans based on DeAndre Swift. And you also have Roschon in the building, who's the opposite and is more of a powerful physical runner. So
If
you have
look
both.
at the players that they have spent time with at pro days, the combine, things like that, they're all speed guys. And what does Henderson have? Speed. How about they spent a lot of time with the Texas running back, Blue?
Yep.
What is he? Real fast. The SMU running back, spent a lot of time with him. What is he? real fast.
That's
what he's looking for.
I have a video coming up on him, Brashard Smith. That guy, I'm just gonna say it. You want to know who he reminds me of? Devin Hester. He played the same role at Miami. He was a wide receiver running back, didn't really have a position, and was just a kick returner. Special speed, he's about the similar size and speed as Devin.
Well, Devin was 5'10" and change.
And he ran a faster 40. But then the only thing, instead of coming out of the draft after his time at Miami, he transferred, and instead Devin moved to wide receiver. Brashard moved to running back, and he looked awesome this year. I really like that guy, and I'm not comparing anyone to Devin Hester, but I do see flashes of the similar thing, and he's a guy who will definitely remind you of Devin if you watch him return.
Well, now, just to go on Devin's speed, Devin did not run good at the combine as Devin runs. He ran
he's one of the fastest players I've ever seen.
Okay. So I go down to their pro day, which is only about 10 days later. And they ran on grass, not on turf. He did it twice. 4.35, 4.35 on grass. And that's what he plays. Every time he stepped on the field, he was a 4.35 guy.
Yeah, 100%. He's probably the fastest player I've ever seen. My man Kiyu comes in with a super chat. Thank you, Kiyu. He says, Greg, are you paying attention to this Nico Imalava situation? That's the Tennessee Volunteers quarterback. I know a little bit about it. Apparently, he's skipping practices over an NIL deal. But Kiyu asked, would something like this affect how you view a player and their mentality? Because you got to think he'll pull the same stuff in the NFL.
Yes. I mean, it's a fine line you got to cross here, because technically these NIL things are contracts, and you got to have both parties living up to the contract. There was a guy who left, player on the West Coast, quarterback, I think, at Nevada or one of those places, UNLV maybe. He left because he was promised X amount of dollars.
Ooh.
And then he didn't get it. He took off. He just went to another school.
Yeah, and that's, to me, Q, I'm glad we don't have to worry about a quarterback anymore, and we're in a great position here. But it is something that's becoming a problem as NIL deals get bigger, and now these kids are dealing with contracts and stuff in college. It's a wild time. Going back to Brashard Smith really quick, someone asked, where do you see him going? I don't think there's any way he lasts to 148. I would say somewhere between pick 50, 75, 80, somewhere in there.
Wouldn't shock me if he went in the second. And because, again, all these players are very similar, so it's how much you like them.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's really more of a third, but it wouldn't shock me if he went in the second.
Yeah, 100%. That's right where I am with them too. And then TJ Johnson asked a good question. This is probably one of my favorite players for the Bears if he were to fall to round 2. Nick Scourton, the guy from Texas A&M.
I like Scourton.
He seems like an ideal fit. Maybe he can play like a Cam Jordan role. And he said Dennis Allen could have some insight.
Well, here's the thing. It's interesting because Cam Jordan's like 280 pounds.
Yep.
Okay. And Scourton played in the 250s at Purdue, and he has 10.5 sacks. So now he goes to A&M for the NIL money. And the way they play their scheme, they want him bigger. So he pumps himself up to 280. Still gets 5 sacks, 5.5 sacks, comes off the ball. But what was he at the combine? 257.
257, yep.
Which is what he was at Purdue. And that's what he'll be in the league.
Yeah, he's going to be that pass rusher, yeah. I'm confused with what, and that's the thing. Texas A&M, you gotta, all three of those players, when you watch them, they had more talent on that defensive line than they got out of it. You had Shamar Stewart, you had Nick Scourton, you have Shamar Turner at D tackle, and they just didn't put up the numbers that I thought they would. I think having Scourton beef up to 280 was probably a mistake. He just wasn't as good of a pass rusher, but I love him. Now, my biggest worry is I just saw today he's actually visiting the Eagles and doing a workout with them today, and it's his second
He can't
visit
now.
with
Wait a
the
minute. He
Eagles.
can't do a workout for the Eagles in Philly. He can work out
Well, wherever
wherever
I
his
don't know
hometown.
where it was. I saw it was
Yeah,
from
he can work.
Rappaport. It
He
was on
can work
Twitter.
out at A&M,
Mm-hmm.
or he can work out wherever his hometown is.
Yeah, he's doing a workout with the Eagles, where I don't know where
so
it is. But
there's people said, well, so and so's coming in and going to do a workout for the Bears. No, he's not. You cannot work out on a visit.
on a top 30, yeah.
Yeah, unless you're a local player. And here's the thing: the Bears have been so secretive this year about who's coming in, who's not. People are throwing names out. Some of them are real, some of them are false. I know for a fact that instead of doing visits, they're doing a lot of Zoom because you can get. How about this? I talked to a friend of mine. I'm not going to mention the team.
Yeah.
They don't have one player coming in. They do it all by Zoom.
Oh,
Or
wow.
they go to him. But they don't have him come to their place.
Yeah. I'll quickly answer Oscar's question here. How do you feel about the Bears taking a player like Tez Johnson at 72? I wouldn't mind a wide receiver. I'm iffy on Tev. He's like Tez. He's really quick, but he's not fast. I don't know. There's just something about him I don't like.
He's small, and he ran 4.5 and change. No,
That's he gets out of his break quick. Like he has the quickness, but he doesn't have the long speed for a guy his size.
He is not what I would say is a fit for what you got to look at what they've brought in, what Johnson had at Detroit, and the guys that are like the Washington State receiver. That's the guy supposedly who's coming in.
Kyle Williams, yeah.
And they spent a lot of time with him at Indy. Those are the types of guys they go after. The Utah State receiver, Royals.
Mm-hmm.
These guys, can all run. And some of them are inside, outside guys. Some of them are strictly inside guys. Now, the two guys you sign in free agency aren't outside guys. Those are inside guys.
Those are slot guys, yeah.
So, and Johnson said, he goes, I don't want all big guys. He wants a mix, but he's only got one big guy.
Well,
and that's Rome.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we signed two. We have two bigger guys on the roster, but they're not playmakers, really. I mean, we have Colin Johnson, a holdover from last year.
He's not on the roster.
He is. I'm almost is he not?
No, he was a free agent. They didn't bring him back. The 6'6" guy.
Yeah. But we did sign Miles Boykin then. At least we have Miles Boykin.
Boykin is, to me, he's an enigma. It's a guy I really thought was going to be a good pro, and he's done nothing. I mean, this is a 6'4" guy, 220 pounds, who ran in the low 4.4s or high 4.3s, could jump out of the building, had a great career at Notre Dame. He's a local kid, local Chicago kid, and he hasn't done a thing in the NFL.
I can't believe I thought Colin Johnson was back.
No,
he's not on the roster. Yeah, I missed that one. Yeah. But so Miles Boykin would be our one big receiver other than Rome. And Rome does have that body type. I think Rome could play anywhere. Yeah. But he's also kind of like a Keenan Allen, where he's a big body type, but he's really quick and agile and can play in the slot as well.
There is one other bigger guy they had, and he was on the practice squad and the regular squad. I think he was on the 53 a good part of the year, but he never played last year. Was that he played up in Green Bay? Toure, is that his name?
Oh, Samori Toure, yeah.
Yeah.
From Nebraska, right?
Yeah, he's as compared to some of those other midgets they got, he's a pretty big guy. He's like 6'1", 200.
Yeah, I loved Samori coming out of Nebraska, actually, and he's a speed burner. So he's a guy who can run.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, looking at the wide receiver depth chart, I think if we're going to add a wide receiver, I would want a guy that's at least 6'2", a guy with some size in that room, because like you said, we have a lot of the smaller guys. And as far as size, it's Rome Odunze, Miles Boykin, that's it.
You're right. No, and that's what I've been thinking. In fact, here was what I thought, because I thought, the Penn State tight end Warren, if he was there, could be the guy. And I think I don't think they trade out if he was there.
Yeah.
He can play your X receiver.
Oh. Yeah,
You know,
I think
he can play
a
X.
lot.
He can play in the slot. He can play X. He can play on the wing. Hell, he's lined up as a Wildcat quarterback. He was a quarterback coming out of high school, but I've seen him throw. He doesn't throw very well.
Yeah.
But he's just an ultra talented player. I mean, they were using him in goal line situations as a running back at Penn State this year.
He snapped the ball as well. I mean, he's the only player I've ever seen hike the football and catch a 60-yard touchdown pass on the same play. So, but my biggest thing with him, and I think a lot of fans are laughing at this and they're not taking it seriously. But you heard Ben Johnson talk about Tyler Warren and possibly bringing in a Wildcat package with him.
I haven't heard that, no, but that's I've just felt all along, after the more I did on him, that if he was there, and then after I see that he's one of the consensus best 6 in the draft, that if he's there, and I don't think he will be, and I'll tell you when we're done who the other 2 teams are, and there could be a third that I know from 2, and I'll talk to his agent again before the draft to get a better feel, but I just think he's too much of a playmaker and can do too many things not to take.
Yeah, 100%. Someone asked, would you be upset if we stuck at pick 10 and took Tyler Warren if he's still there?
They already gave Keenan's number away. He ain't coming back.
Yeah, that's what I wasn't even going to answer the question. I just was putting up my answer right there. Keenan is not coming back. I think Keenan's gone. But what I was trying to...
He doesn't fit the profile that Ben Johnson wants, and that's fast.
Yeah, and we also, I mean, we're putting more money into the trenches. I don't think we're bringing in another big-time receiver. But Ben Johnson, when he was asked about it at the owners' meetings, he specifically, when he was raving about Tyler Warren, he said he's a guy who can do it all. You can play him a fullback. You can line him up as a slot receiver. You can line him up at tight end. But then he went on for about 2 minutes of talking about how he could design a Wildcat package around him and how he could, on those 3rd and 1s, like it's 3rd and inches, right? And instead of having Caleb Williams in the backfield, you bring in Tyler Warren, who's done this and carried the ball and did it at Penn State. He can run that Wildcat, pick up those inches. Caleb then, on 3rd and inches, instead of staying in there and doing a quarterback sneak and get hit, he goes to the sideline, catches his breath, talks to Ben Johnson, and comes in fresh after Tyler Warren picks up a 1st down. It's really hypothetical, but Ben Johnson, just the fact that he's already dreaming up stuff like that, I would love if Tyler Warren became a Chicago Bear. And I'm not even a big
He's one
fan
of the few guys I think they stay at 10 for. Now, they may be forced to stay at 10. Yeah, I mean, because we don't know how that's going to work out. But I just think that he's one of them. Obviously, Genty, but Genty's not going to be there. I don't think there's any way he's going to be there.
I'm knocking on wood. Look, Greg, I'm trying to manifest that one. Look, I'm saying right now, Raiders draft Tet McMillan. They want Tet McMillan, baby. Take T-Mac. Let
Tet
Genty
McMillan is not going to go as high as a lot of people think because he can't run very well.
See, he ran a 4.5. People keep saying that, but like, look at his size. He's 6
look
foot
at Rome's size, and he ran 4.45.
But if you look at the guys who ran 4.5 40s and were the exact same size as Tet McMillan or bigger, the last 3 were Michael Pittman Jr., Drake London, and who was the other one? Mike Evans. Like, they're big, physical, number 1 receivers in the NFL, and that's the profile.
I'd be shocked if he go. Him and the kid from Missouri.
I love Luther Burden, but he's not a
Burden. In fact, there's issues with him, and there's a lot of. If you notice, like the guys like DJ and stuff, they've taken them out of their first round, out of their top, 35 players.
They had him falling to round 2, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think
the one guy the guys they don't have high number. We both like Pierce. They got him dropping down.
I love Pierce.
Love the Ole Miss defensive tackle.
Oh, Walter
Kuiper has
Nolan.
this thing. He's got us taking him at 39. And so I talked to Mel. I go, what kind of disease does he have that he's still there? Because Mel talks to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And he said, character. And I go, I can't find anything other than he's different. And he goes, well, that's what it is. He's different. And I go, he's a fucking defensive lineman, man.
Give me a different guy. I don't care. I like it, man. Yeah.
But,
And
it gets down to, can they live with them? How good is their support staff? How good is their information on the player? And do they want to deal with it? But there's nothing about him that's any criminality. There's nothing about Pierce, as far as I know, other than the one traffic stop. There's any criminality. Now, I read the other day, in fact, I think it was in Dane's book, was a pescatarian until a year ago. So what? Not Caleb, Justin Fields was a pescatarian.
Yeah, Pierce is one of my favorites in the draft. And to me,
but it's funny because I've said it on X, and I'll say it again here, is that look at now DJ is really tied in. Mel is tied in, and actually Dane's tied in pretty good with some people, but DJ's tied in with a bunch of GMs, and because he's worked for Howie, he's worked with Ozzie in Baltimore. He knows some really good people, and people trust him, so they give him good information. And now I lost my whole train of thought. Well, they, just the way they got these guys, how they got their boards lined up. You look at his board, you look at Mel's board, and you look at Dane's board. They're all different.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And so, and that's what I've been saying. I go, that's exactly what you're going to see around the league. You're not going to see any similarity between Team A, Team B, and Team C.
And that's one thing. And that's where I'm always really honest with that. And I've tried this year. I just feel like we're in a perfect spot because no matter how I try, I'll go through and mock every pick myself and try to be as realistic as possible. And you get to pick 39, and there's still a good 10 to 15 players that are guys I think could potentially go in the first round every single time. And there's almost no way to do it where you can't get to pick 39, and there's not at least a handful of guys that are just would be awesome picks for the Bears. And I think
I'll tell you, here, let me throw this, see what you think. This is one of the reasons why I don't want to take an offensive lineman in the first round. I'd rather have Connerly, or I think I got his name. I put the pronunciation down. Suve Ine.
Oh, Suva-Ine, Jonah Suva-Ine.
I'd rather have these guys in the second or third than spend a first. And they give you versatility that some of these other guys don't give you.
We've
Because
also brought him both in
Connerly
for
has got. I think Connerly, he's going to be a decent left tackle.
Mhm.
He might not make it to 39, but if he does, but he can also play inside. Saveine has played both tackles, and he can play a guard.
He
So,
looks like
to me, those are ideal guys to take, and they're good football players.
And I also think, we've also brought them both in for top 30 visits, so it looks like Ryan Poles is on that train.
Yeah, again, I'm not buying.
I think I've confirmed both of those. I asked around on those ones. The one I haven't confirmed, Will Campbell was not confirmed. There was a couple more that aren't confirmed.
Warren is not coming. I know that for a fact.
Warren's not coming. Yep. And let's see, what was the next one? Oh, there's no chance we're trading for TJ Watt. I'll go ahead and cut that one off right there.
I put out a thing today. I go, wait a minute. Here we go. I posted it this
Someone
morning.
mocked it yesterday or something.
Here we go again. I go, it's the same thing from 6-7 weeks ago. Garrett says, I want to trade. So everybody's, we got to trade for it. TJ Watt is not going anywhere other than Pittsburgh. So get it out of your mind.
And there's no way I'd even want to give up that much for him anyway.
I know.
They had us giving up next year's first, pick 10, and pick 39.
Insane. He's not
3
going anywhere.
impact players for a guy that you'd have to pay probably $40 million a year. That's how you tank the franchise. No, thank you.
No,
thank you. There were some rumblings about Shamar Stewart, and we are bringing him in for a visit as well. What are your thoughts on Shamar?
I'd think about him in the second round. I'd never touch him in the first.
Yep, that's kind of how I feel. I'd maybe be a little higher on him. I wouldn't mind him if we traded down and we're picking somewhere in the 20s.
Well, to me, the guy they signed in free agency, O'Dai, that's him. The bigger guy, but he's got production.
There's going to be a lot of edge rushers available in the second. I think this some people underestimate about this year's draft. There's so many edge rushers, and you're going to have 4 or 5 go in the first round. You have your Jaylen Walker, your Abdul Carter, probably going to see Mike Green, probably going to see Donovan Izaraku, Michael Williams. And then when you're looking in the second round, if James Pierce Jr. falls, he's the biggest home run pick I could imagine. But
if you got Pierce,
him or Scorton, I'd take either one.
Scorton, I don't know if I'd take Scorton at 39, but
I would,
and I like him, I like him. But it's between that. Now, running back, if there's a good running back there, if Henderson's there, the other Ohio State back, I got to lean towards one of those guys because I know how good they're going to be. But also, like, if Mel's right and Walter Nolan's there in the second round,
my thing with that one, though, he had Walter Nolan and Kenneth Grant there. And he had us choosing Walter Nolan over Kenneth Grant. I don't see that happening. He had Kenneth Grant going 3 picks later than Niners. No way am I taking
it. Would
Nolan
be,
over Grant.
You know what? I look at it this way. Walter Nolan's a better player today, and he's a better pass rusher. Grant might be the better player 2 years from now, and he's the anchor guy.
Well, I feel like he fits the Bears better, though. When you're looking at Nolan is basically Grady Jarrett. So, and we already have Dexter as well.
But I know what you're saying, but this when you look at how Allen puts his defensive tackles, he's not always playing with a 1 and a 3. Sometimes lines them up as 2 2s. Sometimes he lines them up as 2 3s. He moves them around, so it's not that hard 1, hard 3 on every single down. But
Kenneth Grant's to me, he's an impact player against the run.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Right away.
Then I went back and I started doing it last week, and I watched a whole lot of Nolan. And he was 297 at the combine. He was 300 at the pro day. He's going to play at 305 in the league. That dude is so strong, Swifty. I mean, he just jacks people up at the line of scrimmage.
Here's what I saw. So he gets off the line of scrimmage so well. He beats his block so well. He has no idea where the hell the ball is. He'll beat his man, but he'll be beating his man while the running back goes right by him. Like, he's beating his man with a swim move, and the running back is 6 inches to his left running by him. I just saw that too much with Walter Nolan, that he's too concerned about beating his man and his awareness.
I didn't see that, so now I got to go back and look again.
That's what I saw. When you just watch, if you're just watching like him in a bubble, it's just like at the Senior Bowl. You're just watching him versus his man. He's beating his man almost every time. But the problem is, a lot of times he's beating his man and taking himself out of the play. I just saw it way too much, where he's breaking into the backfield and just not locating the ball carrier. For the amount of times he got into the backfield, the amount of sacks and tackles for loss he had were ridiculously low. Because that's the thing. He was in the backfield that much, but that's where it's 50-50, because it's like, can Dennis Allen coach that out of him? If Dennis Allen,
like I said, now I got to go back, and this is,
if you can teach him how to finish, he's a Pro Bowler.
This is exactly when we were in meetings, and we'd have discussions with our scouts, and I saw the guy and another guy saw the guy. And the one guy seen him like you do, and I saw him like I do. And then I go, okay, time to go back and look at more tape because one of us is right. And what I try to do then is then I say, well, Swifty said this. So now I'm going to look for it. That's all I'm looking for.
Yeah. Oh, I do the same thing. Yeah. When you say stuff. Yeah. I think that's the best thing about watching tape because it's impossible, even when you watch tape, to see everything. But I don't even think I was the first. I think I might have even heard Dane Brugler or Daniel Jeremiah mention it months ago that that's what they saw. So that might have been why I went and looked for it. And then it was standing out to me. I'd see him beat his man, but there'd be times where like he beats his man and he's right in the quarterback's face. The quarterback's already handed off the ball and the running back ran right through the hole that Nolan created. And I just I see that so much. And it's like, and to me, Kenneth Grant he fits his team better. But let me just be clear, guys. I love both of those prospects and will be happy with either one of them as a Bear.
No question
Especially in
about
round
it.
two.
I think that Grant could be an Akeem Hicks type of player. He's not that yet. And he's still 21 years old.
Oh, yeah.
But he has got that type of talent.
Yep, 100%. And the other point is I think they're both first-round quality players. So if you're talking about getting either one of those guys at pick 39 or 41, I think you're in a beautiful position. To finish my answer, the other pass rushers who could be there in day two, if James Pierce and Nick Scorton are gone, you got guys like Landon Jackson. You got Princely Uman Jack Sawyer. There's a bunch.
I'm not a Sawyer fan because he's got
Braden
30-inch arms.
Yeah, Braden Swinson. They're just a bunch of them.
Swinson, I really like a lot.
Yep. And even going into round three, I mean, you guys like Ashton Gillott and Josiah Stewart out of Michigan. This year is just loaded with pass rushers. So we're in a beautiful position where we can get an edge rusher any point in the first 2 days, any one of those first four picks.
There's no question about that. How about this? I meant to bring this up earlier. The league, a few years ago, they cut down the number of people they invite to the draft, players they invite to the draft, because they don't want a guy hanging around day two. And they said that one guy, a couple of years ago, a guy didn't go and he went home. He said, screw that. I've been humiliated enough. How about Jalen Milrose going to the draft?
Yeah, that's so I heard, I think it was Daniel Jeremiah talking about it. And he brought a different perspective that was kind of interesting to me because it was like, okay, in previous years, that's how you felt. It was really sad when you saw a guy in the green room and he hasn't been picked yet. But they offered a different perspective with Jalen Milroe here. They brought us, here's a chance for a guy who isn't supposed to go in round one, right? But he's going to be there. He's going to get to experience the draft. And then when you get to day two, I think the plan is, according to what I heard, he's still going to be there. And you're going to have a guy who can still go up on the draft board and walk across the stage on day two, which would be kind of cool. But Jalen Milroe is such an interesting one because I've seen him mocked early round two. But man, his draft evaluation, he could fall to round 5 or 6. Who knows?
You know what? But really, reality is, what's the difference between him and Richardson at the Goldstuck in the top 5?
Oh, I think Richardson had more talent to me. I think I actually compare Milroe more to what's his name last year out of Tennessee, Joe Milton.
Yeah.
Remember Joe Milton? I think he's more. I would put him more in that category than someone as talented as Anthony Richardson. Richardson hadn't put it all together, but I when I saw him coming out, he has the talent of a Cam Newton. He has the body type, the arm talent, the athleticism to be that kind of guy. He just hasn't got it done in the NFL.
Now,
but
I'll tell you what could be interesting, and it would be early round 2. And I'm just trying to connect the dots, but I don't. The offensive coordinator of Cleveland is Tommy Rees.
Mm-hmm.
Where did Tommy Rees before he was at Cleveland? He was Jalen Milroe's offensive coordinator at Alabama. And he helped turn Jalen Milroe's game around.
The other one I see, though, with Cleveland that makes sense, to me, I think it just makes too much sense, Cleveland. I've heard some people write it off already because they signed Joe Flacco today. But I think at some point this year, Kirk Cousins will be the quarterback of because you can go the same connection there. Their head coach, Kevin Stefanski, his best years were offensive coordinator of Kirk Cousins.
Okay,
So
I got
that connection too.
I got information that I'll tell you when we're done.
Okay.
That I'm sworn to secrecy for saying it in public.
You don't think that's happening though?
Well, I'll just say I'm sworn to secrecy, and I got it like 2 hours ago.
I'm still sticking on it. If I was a betting man, I think
No, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying
there's a lot out there. I think it's going to happen at some point. I just don't. One thing I will say, there's no way he sets in Atlanta.
I'll tell you what's going on when we get done.
Yeah, there's no way he sets in Atlanta all year on the bench, though. I think someone's trading for Kirk Cousins, and people are forgetting there's another starting quarterback out there. So that is something. Cleveland could be in the mix for Jackson Dart or any of those round 2 quarterbacks. They are linked to Jalen Milroe too, but it's interesting. And
now Ryan says, I've heard anything you hear, if it's not coming from a NFL source or somebody like Rappaport or Schefter, don't believe it.
Yep. And even Rappaport.
Don't believe it because so many people just sit and make things up and throw darts at the wall.
That's the thing. Well, yeah, all the media guys are making things up. But then on the other hand, even guys like Rappaport and Schefter, who always are legitimate with their breaking news, they still get information from NFL teams during this time of the year that's incorrect. Because NFL teams are going to purposely feed them. If they come to them, if someone hears a story, like we'll take an example here of Ryan Poles, and it's just going to be purely hypothetical. But if a news story, one of the stories that's going around right now is the Bears are really interested in Genty. Now, if Ryan Poles didn't want anything to do with Genty and Schefter called him up and said, is this true? Ryan Poles would be like, yeah, oh yeah, man, this is true. They're not going to tell Schefter or Rappaport who they plan on drafting. They're going to send them smoke signals to make teams think they're looking another way. That's just how it works at this time of year.
They got everybody and their mother outside of me probably is tying an offensive lineman to the Bears at 10. I just don't get it. And I'm probably going to be wrong. I just don't see it happening.
Yeah. And that's why I think that could be one of those smoke things. They're sending out the smoke. Let people think we want an offensive lineman so we can surprise people. Someone said Kirk Cousins to the Raiders. No chance. They just signed Geno to a big deal.
Yeah.
They don't have enough money for that. Sorry. Let's see. What are your thoughts? Are there any other the day 2 pass rushers that really catch your eye? I know someone was asking about Princely Uman-Mielen, the Ole Miss guy.
I personally like him.
I do too.
Guys like DJ and stuff and Dane got him as a third, not a second.
I could see him, and I think that's just there's just so much talent mixed in there that it's just going to take one team, and I think that's
there's no question. And like I said, you keep saying there is. Paul said it at the owners' meeting last week. He said, "Well, you got a group of guys at the top, and specifically said, and we're still in single digits." And then he said, and then you go the next 30, 40, 50 players. They're all the same.
Yep, they are.
So then it's how do you rank them? And they're going to be so much discrepancy from team A to team B.
Yep. Oh, and I got to address
that. It's how, you and I really like Grant. Mel doesn't have him going to the second round.
It's crazy.
DJ's got him going in the first.
Yep. It's just going to take one team, and that's where it comes down to. I do have to address this. I don't know why this is going around, but the Bears posted a picture of players reporting to for the offseason.
Jaron Dexter is not playing end.
And he's also, for some reason, I saw multiple, there's actual articles out there where people are writing articles about how Jaron Dexter is 270 pounds now.
He's
Jaron Dexter, he said on Twitter himself, He commented on the post himself and said, "I'm 310 pounds, guys. It was just the angle." And then he posted more pictures of him working out where you can see how huge and stacked he is. That was 4 days ago. And every single day since then, I've heard at least 10
I
people
know, and there's a
bring
couple
this
of
up.
guys that,
And it's absolutely ridiculous.
I don't want to mention names,
There's
but
another one. I'm
they
done.
put stuff out there and they go, yeah, can you imagine him being a defensive end? And he is not a defensive end in that scheme.
Oh my goodness.
And somebody says Cam Jordan. He's not Cam. Cam Jordan was 275 in college and played 280 for the Saints. Okay, so and we're talking Gervon Dexter's almost 6'6" and 310 pounds, and he'll probably get heavier. The guy, what I like about it, he's matured. Where he wasn't a workout warrior in college, he's become a workout warrior in the pros. That's a good thing.
He's an absolute beast. Now, he did get some reps at defensive end occasionally, and that's one of those things where he can move around the D-line. But I just want to be clear, the guy is 310 pounds. He's not slim down.
And he's a 4'9" guy, so come on.
Yeah.
And he doesn't give you any
in for a
burst
Pro
off
Bowl
the
type
edge.
season, yeah. In for a big
And then
year.
you go back, why did they sign Dale? That's
Play edge.
That's the Dale, the edge, and then what Walker did last year, edge and play inside sometimes in pass rush. Got a lot of sacks rushing from inside, for the Colts. So that's the guy who's doing that, not Gervon Dexter.
Yep, 100%. And I just wanted to be clear on that. I actually made a video about it 4 or 5 days ago, just trying to shut it down. Every day, every single day, I get 5 or more people
coming out with, and there's one idiot who says he claims he's got the draft, the Bears board, and he put it up about a week ago, and I just started laughing. I go, let's see, they haven't even
Nobody has the Bears draft board.
They haven't even started the meetings yet to put the board together, but he's got the board. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Oh man, it's one of those years. I'm super excited. I think this year we're in such a beautiful position here. We're going to be, when we're back in 2 weeks and we're sitting here, we're going to have one player and we're going to be looking at a board with about 8 picks in front of us and about 15 to 20 guys that I really want on the board. And it's
I know. I hear you.
There's going to be 4 or 5 that if we're sitting here today that we didn't think would be on the board when we're heading into round 2.
But I do think this, if they're not able to get out of 10, they may, depending on who's there, try to move down a little bit from 41, probably not 39, to pick up another. Well, you won't get a third. You'd have to drop too far, but they don't have a fourth. At least get something else, because I think they need at least one more pick to take care of everything, but it remains to be seen. I'm just confident they'll be able to trade out of 10. It's just, to me, that it's the perfect scenario for them. Is it going to happen? Who knows? To me, there's only a couple players I'd stay for.
Yep, 100% with that. Final question here. John asked, tell me your thoughts about the safety depth. We've covered this a little bit. I think our depth is fine. We have Jonathan Owens. We have Elijah Hicks and Tavarius Moore. It just, I don't know.
I look at it this way. Did they bring in a veteran in free agency? Nope. Did they even try to bring in a veteran free agency? Nope. So what's that tell you?
I've seen multiple. Yeah, we're not doing it. I think we're fine at safety for this year, unless we have an opportunity to draft someone they really like. Like, if
I don't disagree with that, but I don't think it's, well, they're all out of contract. So what? 7 weeks ago, they didn't have an interior offensive line. They do now.
Yep. And I think if there's a couple guys, I think if they're there in round 3, we might look for. The kid out of Texas, Andrew Makuba.
Good football player.
And then Kelvin Winston Jr. from Penn State, who, if he didn't get hurt, I think he'd probably be a second-round pick.
Mm-hmm.
I like both of those guys, but I'm not too worried about the depth right now.
No, the position is not a when you put positions as far as what's the word I want importance of the position. Say it's not at the top of the list.
Oh yeah, definitely not. Yeah,
Value of the position. That's what I was talking. You
Yeah.
know, the value positions are edge, tackle, corner. You know, if you had corner with everybody coming out of contract, that'd be a different story.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I would say Xavier Watts may be a possibility in round 2. I just think we have bigger needs. And then I've saw multiple people ask about the Bears all white polar uniforms. I haven't seen anything on this. I don't know where these questions are coming from. But
Well, because they're giving the league is given the
yeah, but I haven't seen
teams
anything
a
about
little more leeway
the
on these
polar
things.
ones.
Yeah,
I've just, other than people on Twitter talking about it. Yeah,
right.
but
I don't know.
100%. Well, Greg, as always, man, it's an absolute pleasure talking to you. We'll be back in 2 weeks, guys. After night 1 of the NFL draft, we'll be here previewing day 2 on the morning of day 2 because the draft's not till 7 o'clock that night. And then also, anyone, I will be back
That's
later
7
tonight.
or 7 your time, 6 our time, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, 7 Eastern usually, yeah, I think. And I'll be back later tonight. Every year I do a 32-man mock draft with other sports writers and super fans where every guy does a team. I've done a draft for 5 years now. Doing day 1 of that draft is tonight. I'll probably be live and break that down for you guys later. But we'll be back later, guys. Bear down until next time.
See you later. Thank you.